Aloha and welcome back to my channel. If you watched last week's episode, we talked about 3 ways that you can win an offer in a competitive market as a buyer or a buyer's agent. So thanks for joining me again for part 3. Now, last time we talked a little bit about response time, right? Response in, if you know your client wants to make an offer, go write the offer immediately. Do not hesitate. Don't wait till the next day. It's way too competitive of a market. Now let's back up just a minute. If you're seriously looking at properties with your clients, you should be going to look at this property as soon as you can, the day of or the day after it goes on the market. That is how fast it's moving. So let's say you go look at it the day after because it's the first day that they're actually doing showings, even though they posted it the day before on the MLS, right? Well, if your client likes it, maybe even prep beforehand. Let's say they love it. Write the offer. Don't hesitate. You should be communicating if there's some questions about what's going to be in the contract before you even get to the position where you're ready to write the offer. Because you know what could potentially happen? There are agents right now that are, talking with sellers and they're saying, we're going to wait 3 days to review all offers. And then all of a sudden the seller gets 1 offer, maybe 2 offers, and it's a full price offer or over asking price. It might even be a really nice down payment or a cash offer. Then they change their mind. They're like, oh, I want to take it. They change their mind. So if you're an agent that doesn't act fast, you could potentially think you have time to submit it. You're like, oh, it's okay. They're waiting 3 days, so I'll submit it tomorrow morning. You do not want to be that agent that wakes up in the morning and all of a sudden she talks to the listing agent because you're about to submit the offer that you waited till the morning to write because you were checking on something maybe with the lender or, the terms or whatnot, only to find that an offer has already been accepted. You don't want to have to share that with your clients. It's not something fun to go through. So in a market like this, it's really important to have a fast response time, fast to go see it and fast to write the offer. Now there's another piece of this that sometimes agents forget about. If the agent's telling you, oh, they're not going to respond for 3 days, you might actually, in fact, write in your offer 3 days to respond. And I'll tell you, 3 days feels really long when you've submitted an offer and your clients are really trying to get this house or this condo that they really, really want and really need. So put in 24-hour response time, right? They can always respond with, we're not ready to make a decision yet. So communicate with the agent. If you haven't heard anything, it's been 24 hours, you can discuss with your clients whether their offer is still good or not. Is it still on the table? Because most likely it's a buyer's market and the buyers are still going to want the house, even if they have to wait 2 or 3 days for a response. But what you don't want to do is put in a 3-day response and then all of a sudden another cash offer swoops in and steals the deal. So put in a 24-hour response. You can always verbally tell the listing agent that my client's offer is still good, but it does give them a little bit of urgency. If you know your clients have a good proposal and a good offer, why not put in 24-hour response? It'll put a little pressure on the sellers to respond and potentially miss the opportunity. So response time is really important, not only in seeing the house, in writing the offer, but also response on how long your offer as a buyer's agent or a buyer is good for. Another way that you can have a stronger offer is have a bigger down payment. Now, this is not going to work for everybody, but the bigger the down payment, the more seriously the buyers are taken in a lot of instances because it shows that these people are not pinching pennies. Now this is not always the case. There's always going to be exceptions. Another thing you could do is have a larger earnest money deposit. Now keep in mind that the larger the earnest money deposit, the more risk there is because of the fact that your earnest money could potentially be in jeopardy if for some reason, the buyer falls out of contract. So, you want to caution your buyer on this. Although, people are typically leaving anywhere from a 1 to 3% down payment for earnest money in terms of, the initial deposit. And then, of course, you could potentially leave up to a 5% earnest money deposit. But again, just be aware that you're basically risking more money, but this could potentially be foreseen when a seller is analyzing deals, that this offer is stronger because they have a larger earnest money deposit. And then of course with the down payment, typically 20 to 30% would be considered a very strong down payment. Now we know that there are new buyers and they're allowed to put less down. Don't get discouraged, that's totally okay. But if you do have the ability to put a little bit more down, I would always recommend it because it's also going to keep your monthly payment lower. So the last thing I'm going to share with you today is using an escalation clause. Now, what is an escalation clause? I like to share with my buyers, it's a way to win without overpaying. So let me give you an example. Let's say there's a house that your buyers want, it's $800,000, and your buyers want to make an offer for $805,000. Now, they've also shared with you the max they'd be willing to go is $820,000. So the way you would write it into the contract is you would offer $805,000 and then put in the special terms. A lot of times, your agency will have a clause editor, but you put it in the special terms that your client is willing to offer $805,000 up to X amount over the highest bidder. What is X amount? They have to determine that. An example could be like $2,000 over the highest bidder up to X amount. You want to put a ceiling on it or a cap because you're protecting your clients. You know that your clients are willing to pay up to $820,000. And so your offer is going to say, I want to offer $805,000 up to $2,000 over the highest bidder, right? So let's say a bidder comes in and they offer, or a buyer comes in, another buyer, and they offer $810,000. Well, if you want to offer $2,000 over the highest bidder, your offer now stands at $812,000, which is great because your buyer didn't have to pay $820,000 even though they were willing to. Or let's say their offer is higher than that, you're still beating them out by going to a max of $820,000. So you always want to put a cap on it. Again, you're protecting your clients, and it's a way to win offers without overpaying. So a bonus on this would be when you're doing your escalation clause and you have X amount over the highest bidder. For example, I was talking about $1,500 or $2,000. Use an odd number because most people use even numbers. So the last thing you want to do is, there's somebody that actually uses an escalation clause and then you end up at the same amount somehow. So it's just a clever thing to do to, win and to be a little bit more creative, think outside the box rather than using a round number. And make sure to talk to your broker if you're not sure of the correct proper terminology and the legal terms. I'm not going to cover that today, but thanks so much for watching. And if you guys enjoyed, please join me for next week. I'm going to cover something different. Subscribe to my channel and have a great day. Aloha.